Welcome back to Her Shift, the podcast which is all about shifting our beliefs so we can have a goddamn happier, better, more amazing life. And who wouldn't want that? Hello, if you're watching me on YouTube. Yes, I've got the camera running. Not my best hair day. I think I'm rocking a bit 90s today. You know, I've got those bits going on. Yeah, I could work with this. And if you can't see me, just picture it. Just picture a bit of, blonde, boots on show. Got the glasses. And yeah, and I'm just noticing actually the details in my palm wallpaper. How bougie is that? Anyway, back to what we're discussing today. We are talking about emotions and shame being the big one, but the shame monster. And that I'm going to flip the narrative here and say that actually not all emotions are useful. Not all emotions are neutral, like they can be good or bad. And some actually are not even raw emotions. They're actually manufactured junk food emotions that are poisoning us over time. And I will explain a bit more about what I mean there. But I think it's just to say that originally we would always been told that all emotions have a purpose, all emotions are valid, and that we can use them to grow and to heal. And I'm going to say bullshit, actually. No, I don't think that there is a place for all emotions. And I think some have been so put on us, especially as women, that there is no place for them in this world, and they are no help to us with our healing journey other than us to acknowledge what they actually are. And that is what I'm going to be talking about in this episode. So whether you are PMDD or you're just on a healing journey, you've got everything else going on in your life, I think shame applies to us all. And I struck on this because I recorded another podcast. I was a guest on another podcast this week, in which I was telling my story of my past and my traumas and what led to my depression, my PMDD. I think I've touched on this before, but I do suffer from PTSD from the past, and sometimes this is more prevalent races than ever. During the recording of this podcast, my doorbell actually went, and there in real life for everyone to see was my knee-jerk reaction. Yes, I had a spiral, but the person who was interviewing me is actually a licensed therapist, and she was able to talk me through and work what was going on in my head and ground me. I mean, to anyone listening, once this gets published, I think it's going to be fire. Pretty juicy. It wasn't that nice at the time, but I do get how useful it can be. Anyway, it was then noted from this that my biggest thing that I have to work through, and that perhaps I haven't been facing, is my underlying sense of shame. I carry so much shame in my body to the point where I actually don't know what it's like not to feel shame. Can anyone relate to that? Because it's almost like my general feeling of how I feel about myself is derived from shame. I know nothing else. So I think if you were to then wave a magic wand or do hypno and take that shame away, I wouldn't know where I was at. So there's a lot online about shame at the minute. And I think a lot of people are really interested in the topic between shame and guilt, because they are not the same thing. Guilt is when we do something bad, and shame is we are bad. We are bad. It is who we are. It's our very being. It's our very demeanor. And I know that a lot of women that are listening to this, whether you're PMDD or not, but have ever, struggling with their mental health, shame will be such a big thing. You might be aware of it, you might not be, but I would say it's such a big part of who I am that I'm almost scared to let go. And so I've been working through it. I've been, this is how I do my journaling, and I work with AI to bounce back ideas and tell me about it. And what I've come to is actually things like there's lots of emotions which I would say are processed junk food emotions, as in they're not raw. So things like anger can be a good emotion in that it can be a very good indicator in that if if it comes out of us in a healthy, safe way, it can actually be a very good release of emotion. If we feel anger, it's not because we're a bad person, it's for a very good reason. Obviously, how we release that anger is very, very important. But anger is not bad to its core. It's actually a massive indicator, and we can learn from that. However, I've got things down like shame, hate, obligation, that actually I'm now I'm going to challenge this and say they are not useful. They are not useful, and they are manufactured and they are put on us by society or other people. And we've got to start realizing we're not born with them, and they're not for us to carry, actually, particularly shame. So I'm going to work through some of these manufactured junk food emotions. I'm going to explain how they show up in me, and then most importantly, I'm going to talk through how we can get rid of them. If quite slowly, but we can get rid of them. We can park them, we can lose them, we can bin them off. We really can. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to talk about shame, which as a junk food is the rotten core. Now, for me, it shows up in I just feel like I don't deserve so much. So I think I've spoken about it in the past is like I don't like spending money on certain things for myself. I can get away with it when it's that will benefit my children or those that I love. But for example, I had a massive chip on my shoulder about buying branded tampons, because I don't deserve that, or really nice soft toilet paper. Where do I get off deserving that? I don't deserve to have a beautiful home, a successful business, financial freedom. Another shame thing is that I worry about most things I say, whether on here to other people, which is crazy actually when you think about it, because a podcast is obviously to go far and wide. But then other people will take what I say and weaponize it against me, because everything I say is so shame-based. It's inherently bad. Sometimes I do actually feel this, and it will hurt me. It will be weaponized against me. And then, of course, there's the feeling, and I know so many women feel this, that if something is going good or something good happens to us, something bad is going to follow. So, how do we deal with shame? How do we deal with the shame monster? Now, for me, it looks like something very grotesque. And I'm having to realize it's actually not who I am, and it's not part of me. It's been put on me. It's been given to me. It's not mine. It never was. And I've effectively been force-fed it from a very young age. But it's not who I am. And also as well, not only will I survive if this is taken away, I will actually thrive. So I sort of see it as pulling it out of myself, this grotesque, rotting ball of disgustingness, this shame. And then I'm going to reach out and I'm going to hand it back to the person or the people that gave it to me and go, yeah, you can have that back now, thanks. Yeah, I'm good, thank you. And I'm like, I don't want it, nothing to do with me. At which point, in my head, I do imagine sometimes force feeding it back to them. But I'm like, okay, you know what, I'll just leave that there. I'll leave that at your feet. Bye. It really does help for me, certainly, to visualize emotions as these things, objects, images, colours, have things to them. So if something is poisonous and ugly and grotesque and manufactured, my shame can be viewed this way, and realizing it's not mine, give it back, that is so, so helpful. So the second emotion, and I said before, is hate. I don't think I feel a lot of hate. It's not something I've been allowed to feel probably since my teen years. It's something I can tap into if I'd want to. I don't know if it's something that is more prevalent in men than women, But I don't feel the need for hate. I'm not a fan of Star Wars, but I do recognize in that story that hate leads to a very is it the dark side of the force? It feeds that, doesn't it? Hate, there's no good to come from hate. It's not anger. Hate is something. It's almost like it's like anger on Red Bull. It's like anger in a dark hoodie. It actually comes from somewhere else. And it's really important to, if you feel hate, to recognize it and to expel it. I don't know when the last time I ever felt hate towards someone or something. I do think it comes up for me not directly as towards a person, but I've been working through this, and for me, it comes from more of a repulsion. So I feel repulsed towards fakeness in people or platforms or authority. So particularly when people hide behind things like religion, pretend they're this really great charitable person when they're not, when they use positions of authority to hurt other people. People in political things can do that. It's a fakeness. And particularly when it hurts people, particularly children and women, I can feel this level of an accelerated anger, I would say. I'm not sure if it quite goes to hate, because again, it's something I've been taught not to. It's not safe for me to feel hate. But again, that's not necessarily a bad thing, because again, it's this manufactured, man-made emotion that does not serve us well. I mean, look what happened in Star Wars. Not good. Not good. Another way I feel what might be the underlying feelings of hate is when I have been controlled myself, when someone has controlled me, lied to me, had authority over me, but not for my own good. I do feel that. And then perhaps frustration sometimes at others when people are incredibly stuck in their own ways. They're in very toxic, self-sabotaging patterns. They might recognize it, but also they don't want to do anything about it, but they're happy to bleat or vent their venom onto others. That's when I start to feel that. Is it my solar plex? Just here? That's when I start to feel that. So I think it's important to view hate, or at least an elevated version of anger, as, again, it's not a primary emotion. It serves no good, but to really look at what is causing the underlying emotion. Is it grief, disappointment, betrayal? Those are definitely things that come up for me when I think about why I would feel this level of anger. Grief being a big one. Or let down by people. At number 3 in the junk food of emotions, I've got fake kindness, which I guess is like obligation, people pleasing. It's like feeling you have to be nice or do things for people that definitely don't deserve it, but you think it's a good thing, right? It's like the sugary cereal. It's struggling to say no and feeling guilty when you do. Because, being charitable and being generous with your time and doing things for other people makes you a better person. But again, this is actually nowhere near a raw emotion. And obligation has definitely been put on us, especially as women. It's when you put someone else's comfort over your own truth. We don't speak up. And I think that's a very dangerous manufactured emotion. So I'm massively guilty of this one. And I sit with it and I say that kindness isn't about people pleasing. It's about truth with compassion. Because obviously there's ways to tell the truth. There's ways to say no while being considerate of other people's emotions. It doesn't make you a bad person. Number 4, I've got self-sacrifice. So I suppose that's like martyrdom, which I put as the low-fat, low-calorie scam. So it's like putting everyone first and then feeling resentful when no one notices. It's like doing everything with no appreciation and then resenting others for it, even though they might not have asked you to do something, but you're doing it anyway. You also feel guilty for needing to rest or time to yourself, must keep going, must keep busy. And there's a deep-rooted belief that you have to struggle to deserve happiness, like you have to earn happiness. You have to literally give everything and completely run from a depleted cup in order to deserve any sort of goodness in your life and any sort of happiness. Self-sacrifice, it's not good. It's not good. So again, when you recognize this, you have to really think, you don't need to earn the right to exist. That is it. You don't need to flog yourself. You don't need to deplete yourself anymore. You don't need to be laid up in hospital suddenly to deserve to be looked after or have compassion from others. I like to look at self-sacrifice as a treadmill or a hamster wheel that we're constantly on that never goes anywhere. So step off it. Step off the self-sacrifice treadmill. I've also got sentimentality, which I've then coined as stale leftovers. Now, sentiment as a word is a nice word, isn't it? It's a sweet word. But it means like holding on to things. This is how it shows up for me anyway. It's like holding on to relationships because of the history, because of the previous investment, struggling to let go of past versions of myself. It's like nostalgia from childhood, Christmases, good things that happened, even though they're layered with lots of other not very nice emotions like control and guilt. It's, yeah, it's like taking a memory and reframing it into something good, polishing it up into something. When I sense that I'm being toxic, sentimentally toxic, I can say to myself, I can honor my past without living it. So I imagine sentimentality is like a box of old clothes. You can love the memories, but you don't have to keep wearing them, especially when they don't fit you or they have holes in them or they're falling apart or you just don't want to wear them, but you feel like you have to keep hold of them because they represent something. Again, it's really, really not good. And the last one I wanted to highlight again, which is probably quite fashionable right now, is toxic positivity. That seems to show up a lot on social media. And toxic positivity, or in comments, get over it culture, is the artificial sweetener of manufactured emotions. So for me, it's feeling pressure to be grateful even when things are actually hard. This is something I've been doing recently. I know from my own therapy, I do this. So I consider journaling and being thankful and my gratitude practices as healing, right? It's a healing practice that's really, really good for me. However, it's also been noted recently, and I don't know if any of you all do this, sometimes I will do it when I don't want to face something. So there's nothing wrong with doing a gratitude practice or writing down what you're thankful for when you feel a bit shit in general. But I've been doing it to avoid healing from this stuff, healing from my shame, healing from stuff that I really need to be facing. And of course, why would I want to? Why on earth on a random Tuesday I want to be digging over old, horrible, toxic memories? But yeah, so it's like that whole, I need to be grateful when things are really hard. Like, yes, it's good to be grateful, but it's okay to accept when things are a bit shit. Then, of course, I think this is so relevant to women who are doing any bit of healing or working on themselves. And that is still struggling with old wounds, because it's like, shouldn't I be over this by now? Shouldn't I be healed? Yeah, that's a toxic positivity, definitely. It's like, come on, move on already. I've actually had this said to me by a professional when it came to a lot of stuff from my childhood, because it's a very anyone's story is very long and very complex, and it can take lots of twists and turns, and I don't think we're ever fully I'd say the word healed. It was just more a case of we take part in our healing. And they said to me, it might be time to park it now. And I probably took that very seriously. And I again felt that guilt, the fact that I was still going over it, when really it's a case of like, it's not that I'm hanging on to it, it's just I'm still working through this. And sometimes different parts of our healing takes time. So don't feel you ever have to be, I should be healed by now. Everyone's different. And I think that toxic positivity is also, for me, the way society rushes pain instead of allowing space for it to heal. There is such a, life is coming at us really fast. There's so much going on, and we don't allow time or space for sometimes really deep shit healing. And it's almost like we reward ourselves when we heal from something, or we take part in a healing practice. So we do maybe a therapy session, or we do some journaling, or we listen to some self-help or a podcast, and go, tick in the box, done. Or I've been doing this 3 months, off. I've been doing this 3 years. That should be enough, right? Without actually looking in ourselves and going, how do we really feel about it? So I think the main thing I've taken from my own toxic positivity as a manufactured emotion is I give myself permission not to be okay. And I've mentioned this in a previous episode that sometimes I know life can get in the way of that. So you're like, right, I really need to sit in this emotion, and I'm not okay right now. But also I'm really busy. I've got an appointment. I've got a meeting. I need to go and do the school run. And what I do is I do park that emotion, but I make a big point in my head to say, I will get back to you later. So this thing that's coming up for me. So perhaps you might have had a tiff with your other half, but you have to go and do a meeting. It's not that you're forgetting it's happened. It's not that you don't want to talk about it. It's not that you don't want to give it grace. It's just that, life has got in the way. But by honouring it and saying, I will discuss this with you, or I will I will work through it in my head after this, that's a really good way of honouring it, but saying, I'm not okay. I'm not okay. You don't have to be okay. And to remind yourself that healing isn't a race and there is no finish line. So toxic positivity can definitely get in the bin. So my final thought on junk food emotions that have no purpose, as far as I'm concerned, they aren't useful. The main thing is to recognise them. There are useful ones. So we've talked about anger. Guilt is another one. When we feel guilt, it's probably a marker, isn't it, to say, I don't think that was good. I didn't behave to my own moral compass then, or I don't like how that made me feel, or maybe I made that person feel bad, so I'm going to reflect and change my behavior in the future. So that's something to be gained from that emotion. But the ones that I've just talked about, I don't think they have a place. And I think we can definitely live without them. And I think most of them have been put on us by society or people. So just recognising it is enough. You don't have to fix any of them today. Just see it, name it. And this is the hard part. Even if it's just for 30 seconds, sit with it. This is very hard for me when it's like I've got to sit with my shame monster, because it is disgusting. I have to imagine pulling it out of my solar plex, actually out of my mouth, and looking at this rotten car, this grotesque ball of disgustingness. And I've got to sit with you. But it really does help to remind yourself that none of these emotions make up who you are. They aren't part of you. You're not born with them. You can definitely live without them. When we talk about junk food in general, because we can live without junk food, I'm so sorry to say that about chocolate and sugar. I actually got Terry's chocolate orange. You can see that on my video. Okay. But I can live without you, Terry's. I can. I may not want to, but that's a discussion for a different day. We can live without them. So it's like an emotional detox. And once you start consuming the junk, your system naturally starts to clear itself out. But recognizing them is definitely definitely the key. So these are my 4 steps I do when I've started to recognize these junk food emotions. So step 1, recognize it. I just notice these emotions, and that's enough to often weaken them. Step 2, name it. And I say, this isn't mine, and I don't have to keep it. Step 3, sit with it. Let the discomfort be there without running. I know that's really hard. Even it's just for a little bit, even 30 seconds, okay? And step 4, choose differently. Each time you notice yourself falling into an old emotional pattern, ask, is this real or is this junk? So my takeaways from this junk food emotion theory are, so we've all been put on this emotional junk food diet, but we don't have to stay on it. Just noticing the junk is enough to start the detox. The next time shame, fake kindness, or toxic positivity show up, pause and ask yourself, do I really need this? And if not, spit it out, love. Go on, get it out. If this episode has hit home in any way, you can relate to it, I'd love you to message me with your biggest junk emotion. What is it? Have you had an aha moment? For me, my biggest one, my one that I want to really put in the bin today is shame, the shame monster. I also think toxic positivity is something that's been put on me. What are yours? I would love to hear from you. I really, really would. So yeah, message me, WhatsApp me, or comment in the group. That would be fantastic. I would love to know what everyone's junk food emotions are. And if you've got a name for like your shame monster again, let me know. I don't have a name for mine as yet because I think that was one of my fears. I often do name quite a few things. As we know, like my ego is called Alexis. But my shame monster, I'll have a think about that during the week and I'll let everyone know. I have got the new podcast coming out. It is actually out, The Room, the private podcast, which is the more than a book club, it's a transformation club. I'm going to be honest with you, I've had a few problems with the paywall on it, on the tech. It is out there are 3 episodes out. But it's not showing up on Spotify or any other platform right now. But hopefully by the time this episode comes to you, or indeed the next one, it will be out. I'm really enjoying just doing every few days, just going online and recording a private podcast episode for The Room, which is all about just stay in the room. Just stay in the room. I really enjoy working on that. And as always, if you have any ideas or you'd like to share your story with me, please, please, please get in touch. I really do love hearing from you. It inspires me. It makes me want to create more content. And it also helps get the message out that we're in this together. And with the support of others, we can really shift our healing and get to a life that is truly amazing and happy and just goddamn good, because we all deserve that. So until the next episode, please remember that you are doing so well. You're doing better than you think. You're stronger than you realize. Please do keep going. And as always, sending all my love.